Good evening, loved ones. Thank you for being here this evening. This is Midweek Connection, and we are continuing our series that is supporting our Spirit Expressing series that we're in called The Power of Awakening. So since we're dealing with awakening, I've wanted to talk about a few practical things around awakening. Maybe what it is and maybe what it isn't. Some things to look out for, to just be mindful of as we go through the process of awakening. And awakenings can happen multiple times. In fact, actually they do, and it depends on the awakening. Sometimes it's just an emotional awakening, and not necessarily a spiritual awakening. There are people who, as we've already discovered, have a practice of spirituality, but have no idea really what enlightenment is, or even if they have an idea, they haven't experienced what it is to have enlightenment. And to me, enlightenment is kind of like a lot like insight. You have eyesight, things that are apparent to you. This is these are our seeing apparatus. Our eyes gives us the ability to capture an image, but it doesn't give us the ability to necessarily understand the image unless we have already experienced it. And in the experience, we have a further or a deeper understanding of what it is we're seeing. So that would be a combination of eyesight and insight. And the same is true for awakening, that and spirituality. So this is just kind of a practical guide to authentic spiritual awakening, supporting our Power of Awakening and Spirit Expressing season that we're in our book study, The Power of Awakening by Dr. Wayne Dyer. Some things that I wanted to kind of add on to it midweek to maybe just share sort of on Hump Day, a little bit of something that can help us to make sure that as we're awakening, that we're doing so more efficiently, more effectively, and more maturely. Honestly, I've seen a lot in my personal journey, a lot of spiritual woo-woo, and woo-woo is fine. In fact, I'll even get woo-woo-ish, if that's a word, sometimes, and I typically warn folks ahead of time, I'm about to get woo-woo here. Because there is room for that. There's certainly room for that. But what I've expressed to our communities, both One Love and First Unity Spiritual Campus, is what I think what's most important is not that we just have a shift in consciousness or an expansion that serves us individually as a person, but that also serves the greater good, serves the world, serves humankind, serves to be a wonderful part of the human story, and that recognition of oneness that we have with all things. And so if my spiritual awakening is just for me, so that I can have goosebumps or feel like I'm all of a sudden sort of rising and levitating into the realms of Buddha and Christ, so that I can sit around and pin myself with badges for a spiritual regeneration or some kind of a next level, almost like playing a video game. Instead of it being something like that, that it actually affects my activity, because my activity, actions, as the old saying says, speak louder than words. So I wanted to support this woo-woo, which is fantastic, these born-again experiences as is referred to by Christians, these enlightening moments referred to mostly out of the East. I wanted to give it a little bit of practicality so that we also experience a sense of groundedness. You know, if electricity doesn't ground, it has a tendency to burn up, to incinerate. And I think that there needs to be a little bit of a grounding here. We're experiencing a surge of beautiful inspiration, information, regular downloads. It's upgrading our existence. But if we don't ground it to a degree, it can also incinerate. Remember this, that no matter how much you enjoy the warmth of fire, if you're not really mindful of your contact with fire, that contact with fire can burn. So I think this is important to realize this in terms of balance. So a few weeks ago, we looked at what is spiritual awakening. We asked the question, what is it? I didn't answer the question because, as I've mentioned to you before, I don't really get into answers. I have responses. I sit and I ruminate on some of these questions, and they send me on a quest. And sometimes there seems to be somewhat of an answer, but I prefer responses over answers. I don't consider myself to be somebody who's able to conclude a thing. I'm more into inclusion than conclusion. So inclusion leaves you open. It's open-ended for more truth to come. As you recognize, as Bishop D.E. Paul says all of the time or on a regular basis, that truth is a journey, not a destination. You don't arrive there and now you're the king of the hill or queen of the hill. Spiritual unfoldment and spiritual awakening is a complex thing, and it's also very personal. So as someone's going through that process, only they can know how much they're learning about themselves, becoming more engaged with themselves. And we're going to talk about that a little this evening. So what is spiritual awakening? We talked about that. We talked about spirituality and enlightenment and finding clarity around that. And this week I would like to share with you my thoughts on spiritual awakening versus psychic awakening, because sometimes they can seem similar, but they're really not. And when I'm using the term psychic, just so everybody knows, I'm not using the term psychic in terms of calling a psychic hotline or going to see a psychic. Okay, I'm not talking about it in that way for anybody who's concerned about that. Not that you should be, but I want to look at the difference between spiritual awakening versus psychic awakening, because it's easy to mix up spiritual awakening and psychic awakening. But they really are unique and they are very distinct. They are two journeys that sometimes intersect with each other, but they a lot of times are running parallel and they're not necessarily connected. A psychic awakening, to me, is really about tuning in to deeper layers of reality. I like to say it's like flipping on a switch. It sort of activates the pineal gland within us. And for some, this gets into woo-boo, but to me, it's not. There's a pineal gland in your body. It's basically near the base of the spine in the head. Not the base of the spine, near where the spinal cord and all of the information devices start to connect there to the brain. That area is activated through a psychic awakening. It's like flipping on that switch. And it can start to help you to perceive, to be able to expand enough to open up your eyes. The pineal gland directly connected to the third eye can help you to start to open up your eyes and perceive dimensions that are beyond what we experience every day and our everyday date time stamped experience. To me, it gives you the ability to have some level of excitement about exploring what is beyond the physical world. So someone who's having a psychic awakening can be experiencing metaphysical interpretation of all sacred writings, metaphysical interpretation of their belief systems. You can start to just simply see things differently beyond what is the typical interaction between the physical eyes and the world around us. So to me, psychic awakening is about tuning into the deeper layers of our reality. We could even say it involves looking and exploring in dimensions beyond this particular space and time. It's often the universe. You're really expanding and allowing yourself to understand that there's something beyond just this physical world. Somebody who's having a psychic awakening is able to look past even atheism or fundamentalism, either one, and say, no, I don't need to label this. I don't need to put any particular name on this. I just want to expand further to allow space for all that is beyond me. Psychic awakening can happen to a scientist who is studying particles in the body and realizes that the particles they're not necessarily touching each other, that there's space between them that make them work and communicate with each other. And what is that spatial energy between them that makes them able to communicate and work together? That's the part that I've become interested in because of a psychic awakening. It is the phenomenon beyond just flesh and bone and blood. It's beyond the everyday experience of going to work, coming home from work, clocking in, clocking out, doing the school thing, having the relationships thing. And it's beyond all of that. It's in the more ethereal. So that's a psychic awakening. On the other hand, to me, a spiritual awakening, honestly, is more about connecting with your own heart, connecting with your own inner self. So psychic awakening to me is I'm sort of exploring what's going on outside of me. I want to kind of get answers to where did we come from? What's that all about? Where spiritual awakening is about connecting to the heart. It's about a journey within To me, the reason that spiritual awakening is even more important than psychic awakening to me personally is because the greatest discovery you'll ever make in your exploration of life is the discovery of your true self. Self-realization, self-actualization, that's really what spirituality is. It's that space of understanding your own emotions, understanding and focusing on understanding your thoughts and your feelings and recognizing that you aren't any of those. It's about healing your psyche. Honestly, spiritual awakening can cause psychic awakening to become even further expanded because you're healing your psyche, giving yourself the ability to see even further beyond what you used to be able to see. So spiritual awakening is about that authentic relationship with the true self, healing the psyche, starting to learn how to nurture and give nutrition to your soul, an attention to your soul. You start to realize that you're not your thoughts, your feelings, or your emotions. A spiritual awakening gives you the ability to connect with the divine that's within. When you connect to the divine that's within, you can't help but connect with all of divinity throughout eternity. And this is what happens. You begin to stop identifying with the temporary things. You become less engaged in the worry about material things, your status, your reputation, your gender, your political affiliation, your religious affiliation, because you realize in a spiritual awakening that the most important journey you can ever make is within. As Bishop Carlton Pearson used to say quite regularly, if you don't go within, you'll go without. Someone can have a psychic awakening, not experience a spiritual awakening, and still be going without, because they have had the realization that the universe is bigger than what we thought and God is bigger than what we thought. I mean, even in inclusion, where much of Christian inclusion deals with Jesus died once and for all and everyone is saved and their sins are going to all be forgiven because he paid that price. That's better than being in the other position that believes that if you cuss or something right before you take your last breath that you're going to burn in hell for eternity. It's better than believing that there's an eternal torture chamber that has been created by God for all of his children, but it's still also very narrow. It's still narrowing it down to one person in history who becomes a personality. They're a messianical figure, and you got to worship them in the correct way. You got to meet them in the correct way. Say the right words so that ultimately you can be saved in this life. But if you don't say the right words, your knee will be forced to bow on the other side. By God, you'll confess it then, and when you confess it then all of your sins were already forgiven in Jesus. I appreciate that that's radical grace, and it's again, more expanded than a lot of the fundamentalism we've experienced. But see, this inward journey, this spiritual awakening gives you the ability to go, oh, right. All of these sacred writings, all of these wonderful ascended souls, they were all pointing toward one thing. And that one thing is that I am irrevocably and eternally connected to the all-knowing, the oneness. I have never been separate from God. I could not be separate from God. God is not just a person. God is not a person off in the sky. God is within me. I am of it and it is of me. Spiritual awakening is the process of waking up to the love, the compassion, the deeper sense of purpose and destiny, realizing that I came here loaded and coated with the divine presence and that nothing can ever separate me from God and that I've never been separate from God and I don't even need religion. In fact, the only reason I come together to go to spiritual centers or to churches or to temples or synagogues is for the purpose of fellowship and communion around this oneness that we all have. See, spiritual awakening causes your third eye to open so that you have the insight that helps you to realize how powerful and how divine you are. And then there's this aha moment where you go, oh, and it's not just me, it's everyone else I come in contact with. And I have a deeper sense of connection and a deeper sense of purpose. So in essence, to me, psychic awakening expands your awareness of the universe. Spiritual awakening deepens your understanding of your own self, your true self. Both paths are extremely valuable. They both give to us valuable insights. Both bring to us wonderful bits and pieces of wisdom. But they do lead us in different directions on our personal journey. Unless, in my personal opinion, we have a spiritual awakening that supersedes and is really, to me, the most important, so that it helps the psyche to come right along with the spirit. And if the mind and the spirit are in sync with each other, automatically the physical body is going to start to line up more. And so spiritual awakening to me is vitally important. So again, to summate, to go back over and to bring this back around and conclude. Spiritual awakening and psychic awakening, they're two distinct and unique journeys, and they're both beautiful. Psychic awakening involves tuning into deeper layers of reality, really more outside of me. It activates the pineal gland, which is perfect because then that activates the third eye. That enhances your perception and helps you to see beyond everyday experiences of just the physical. It really focuses, though, on exploring dimensions beyond the physical world. And so people, again, I go back to what we said last week when we were talking about the difference between spirituality and enlightenment. There are a lot of people who have spiritual practices and they're experiencing spirituality. They say that they're, like the catchphrase for years has been, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Honestly, you may not be, you may just be psychic. You may be having a psychic awakening. And so you have dimensions beyond the physical, and we call that metaphysical. Again, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, they had a metaphysical interpretation of the scripture instead of a literal one. Because even St. Paul said the letter kills, the literal kills, but the spirit gives life. So they recognize that in their psychic awakening. But spiritual awakening, it centers on connecting with your heart. And through the heart, having a deeper connection with the understanding that your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions are not you. The real you, the spiritual awakening, is waking up to the real you, who is the CEO of the business of this life, who can call a staff meeting between mind, soul, and body, and start to create a forward vision and version of unity and harmony that causes even the psychic awakening to be more enhanced. Spiritual awakening is a journey inward for understanding, for healing, and for truly nurturing, connecting, making conscious contact, and nurturing the soul. Spiritual awakening, while psychic awakening is speaking more to, again, kind of gaining knowledge and information of the universe, spiritual awakening is a promotion of love and compassion and a real deep sense of purpose and destiny. The key differences really between the two are that psychic awakening expands the awareness of the universe, which is important. It's great. Spiritual awakening deepens the understanding of yourself. One of the things that I spend more time on, kind of like Muji, Ram Dass, many others who came before me, one of the things I spend the most time on is that self-discovery. The asking of the question, who is the one that's perceiving? So not just the perception itself, who is the one perceiving? When there's something I see, who is the one seeing it? When there's a thought that comes, who is the thinker of this thought? Who is the feeler of this feeling? Who is the emoter of this emotion? Who is it that says it's experiencing it? When I say that I am in pain, who is the I that's saying I am in pain? See, I've learned to communicate a little differently because I believe that the I, the true I, my true self, doesn't experience pain. Okay. In fact, embodied this body and this psyche to find out what that experience is like. I'm awake to that. That's spiritual awakening. And it's a lovely journey to be able to even shift my language now. Instead of I am in pain, I will say this body is experiencing pain. Or this mind, if it's a psychological thing, is experiencing pain. Anxiety, fear, all of those other things. Joy, happiness, all of those too. Because those are all emotions. And they're important. They're perfect for this human journey. Spiritual awakening is realizing that even death itself is not anything to be feared. My thoughts, my feelings, and my emotions are nothing to be feared. I'm experiencing them as the true I that I am. And at any moment, I can take charge of those feelings, thoughts, and emotions. So again, psychic awakening is about deeper layers of the reality. It's waking up to seeing, oh, man, there's something beyond here. Spiritual awakening is waking up to your true self. And that, to me, is one of the most beautiful things that you'll ever do. Each of these offer tremendous valuable insights. They're both important. They're both great. But they do lead in different directions on your personal journey. Unless, again, in my opinion, you have that spiritual awakening that gives you the ability to learn how to merge the two in complete harmony. And now then you can influence the psychic awakening and utilize it as the information grabber, while your spiritual awakening is the inspiration that makes it all work together. As I've said to you before, too much information without enough inspiration will lead to the inflammation of self and soul, or soul and self. So as we start to bring this to conclusion this evening, I hope that this is meaningful to you, that you can start to see a little bit of a distinction. They're not necessarily separate, because remember, everything is one. It's all a part of the one. But maybe see a little bit of a distinction so that your intellect at least is not confused by what's transpiring, and that you're always bringing yourself back to the oneness of your soul, your spiritual self. This is a beautiful way to live out this journey in this life, to be able to understand what I'm experiencing, because understanding of it gives me power, gives me the ability to tame the emotions and the feelings as they arise, and remind this body and this mind of who's really in charge, and take this journey that we have here in this human expression and experience and really enjoy it to its fullest. All right, my friends, I want to say thank you once again for being here this evening and allowing me to share some time with you. I hope something that I shared is meaningful to you as we continue to journey through this 7 weeks of chakras. We're discovering the chakras. This week we're dealing with the heart chakra. And this coming weeks on Sunday, we'll be going into throat chakra, really talking about the voice and how you can get your voice. I encourage all of you who are one lovers to tune in to First Unity Spiritual Campus on Sunday. I am in conference this week. We have our Inclusion Conference in Atlanta. I'm excited about that. It's Inclusion 2024. Bishop D.E. Polk and I founded this organization in 2009, 15 years ago, and it really took on its new life about a year ago. At the transition of Bishop Pearson, he and I both felt a really tremendous, passionate, and compassionate call to reopen this communion. We've done so, and in just a year's time, we have at this conference this week multiple people from around the world. So many folks, over 100 people getting together. And I think it was 10 or 11 countries represented from around the world to be in that space and to find out what can we do to spread this message of inclusion far and wide. And that's what we're experiencing, and it's beautiful. So this Sunday, my point is this Sunday I will not be able to bring to you your typical 10 o'clock service. So I encourage you who are one lovers to tune in with First Unity Spiritual Campus at 11 a.m. And please pray for us that this live stream situation will be squared away. Folks, we have worked really hard. I have really, I tell you what this has done. This has worked on my last nerve. And we're making some shifts. We're making some changes because it's necessary so that the systems will run correctly. We have the right equipment, the expertise we're working on. So, but it's been a journey. But this Sunday, we have even a plan B and C. So the 11 o'clock live stream will happen in some way or fashion for all of you on Sunday. I love you all very much. Listen, I ask you to consider giving. Consider giving. That will help us with some of these kinds of things that go on. Consider giving. If you're a First Unity member, give at firstunity.org. If you're a member of One Love Consciousness Movement, please consider giving. The ways to give will be on the screen on the way out. Speaking on the way out, I hear the music getting started, so I'm going to get up out of here. Now go and make it a great evening and a great week because you can. Peace.